Hey everybody, welcome to Wednesday Night Youth Group here at SCF Students. If you don't know who I am, most of you do, but if not, my name is Andy, and thanks for tuning in and thanks for watching. Right off the bat, I want to recognize that there are two groups of people watching this. Number one, there are home groups, and then there are people that are maybe by themselves or just tuning in because they're curious, whatever. So no, first of all, home groups, if you're watching, thanks for watching us. Thanks for tuning in live. We have home groups in where are they? Oh, Southampton and Tara and Wyerton, Hepworth kind of area. And thank you so much to you leaders who have opened up your doors, who have driven to other people's houses, who have given your time and energy in your home to help make this happen. I can't express to you how much that means that you're helping make this happen. So thank you so much. Students, thank you for taking time to hang out with other students and other people and meet together. And hopefully tonight you have fun. Hopefully you learn something, and hopefully you come back very honestly. The second group of people, maybe you're a student and you're not physically in a home group tonight. Maybe you're a parent or friend watching along. Maybe you're another youth pastor. Thanks for checking us out. If you're a student locally and you're not part of a home group but you want to be, let me know and we'll get you plugged in. My information will be in the description. Maybe I'll put my stuff in the chat. I don't know. That's kind of dangerous. We'll see what happens, possibly. But reach out to me. Let me know if you want to be plugged into one of our already existing home groups. That being said, maybe you want to invite 4 or 5 or 20 of your friends. We can't do 20, up to 10. 4 or 5 or 10 of your friends over to your house on Wednesday night, eat some food and watch this video, and you want your house to be that hub. That's phenomenal. Let me know. We can work on that. We can make that happen. That'd be super cool if that happened. But all that being said, regardless if you're in a home group, if you're watching by yourself or maybe with a parent or wherever, regardless of where you're watching from, regardless of who you are, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Hey kiddos, welcome to youth group. I just want to say, you being here makes my heart happier than a woodpecker all hopped up in Mountain Dew. I just have a couple of simple rules to go over with you guys. Rule number 1, no horse playing. Guess what? You're not a horse, you're a child of God.
I'm not a horse, I'm a child of God.
So if I catch you horse playing, you're gone. Rule number 2, no swearing. I don't want to hear words like none of that. If I hear you swearing, you're gone. Rule number 3, no physical contact. The only physical contact allowed are high fives and a firm handshake, and the occasional laying on of hands if it's spirit led. If I catch you PDAing, you're gone. Rule number 4, no starting fires. I truthfully thought this would have been common knowledge, but turns out some kids like to start fires wherever they go. The only fires allowed are the fires that the Holy Spirit starts in your heart. So if I catch you making a fire, you're gone. And you might be arrested for arson. So just don't start a fire. Number 5, be respectful to your fellow youth and your leaders. Do you know what's worse than being a bully? Nothing. Being a bully is the worst. So if I catch you being a bully, you're gone. Last rule I have is probably the most important. Rule number 6, no farting on other people. Farting is stinky and only belongs in your trousers, not on other people's laps. So if I catch you farting on someone else, you're gone. And remember kiddos, always listen to your leaders. They're older and much wiser than you. Unless you're like one of those freaky kid geniuses that graduate when you're 8. Regardless, do what they say, or you're gone.
Okay, so my goal here is to try and bring, not exactly, I don't want to replicate anything, but I want to try to bring some sort of a Wednesday night youth group at the church experience to where you are right now. I don't know if this is going to work, but let's try it. Let's see what happens. What we're going to do is we're going to do a trivia. Each home group, you have one representative typing to us. You can chat in the box your answers. And if you're watching by yourself, feel free to chat as well. I'm in the chat room as well. And so I'll be in there chatting and answering and stuff like that. Let's try a trivia game and just see how it goes. I have no idea. I have no, straight up honest, I have no prizes for anybody. I have nothing to incentivize you to get anything right. I just want to see if we're going to chat in the room, in the chat feature. I'm going to put a slide up on the screen right there. Question is, what Disney movie does the character Jafar appear? Is it A, Cinderella, B, Lion King, C, Aladdin, or D, Beauty and the Beast? I'm hoping most of us get this right. We're going to move quickly. Type in your answers in the chat. And if you answered C, Aladdin, then you are correct. The answer is indeed C. The next question is, who was crowned 2014 Sexiest Man Alive by People magazine? Matt Boyd, you're not on here. Okay. Is it A, Bradley Cooper, B, Chris Hemsworth, C, Channing Tatum, D, Adam Levine. Oh, I should have known. I am just embarrassed myself. If Adam Levine ever watches this, I humbly apologize. Who was crowned 2014's Sexiest Man Alive? How old were any of you in 2014? Is it A, Bradley Cooper, B, C, or D? The answer, as we wait for you to answer in the chat, is B, Chris Hemsworth. Oh, I'm so glad it wasn't Adam Levine. I would have been quite embarrassed. All right, the next question is, which singer pulled all her albums from Spotify in protest of music streaming services? Is it Gwen Stefani? Is it B, Demi Lovato, C, Katy Perry, or D, Taylor Swift? I'm so glad I got all of their names pronounced correctly. That would have been even more embarrassing. Send in your answers, A, B, C, or D in the chat. If you answered D, you got it right. Taylor Swift is the right answer for that. Next question. Vin Diesel voiced Groot, the beloved sidekick, from which movie? Was it A, Guardians of the Galaxy, B, Lego Movie, C, Frozen, or D, How to Train Your Dragon? I have seen 3 of those. I have never yet to see How to Train Your Dragon. Vote. First of all, vote your answer. Secondly, tell me if I need to actually watch the movie How to Train Your Dragon. I don't know. Is it any good? All right, so the question, Vin Diesel voiced Groot from which movie? Is it Guardians? Is it Lego, Frozen, or How to Train Your Dragon? If you answered with A, then you got it right. Next question, what is the name of Napoleon Dynamite's brother? Is it A, Sam, B, Kip, C, Dan, or D, Jeb? Is it Sam, Kip, Dan, or Jeb? Say those 4 words 8 times fast. Okay. What is the name? Give me your answer in the chat. Is it A, B, C, or D? If you said B, Kip, you are correct. Yay! Congratulations, you got it right. Okay, next question. Who played Holly Golightly in the film Breakfast at Tiffany's? Number 1, how many of you have seen Breakfast at Tiffany's? 2, answer the question. Is it A, B, C, or D? Is it Katharine Hepburn, Audrey Tautou? A. I got so confused. Is it Katharine Hepburn, Audrey Hepburn, Audrey Tautou, or Grace Kelly? Which of those 4? 2 of them, is one of them a sister and a mother? Is that how that works? Catherine and Audrey are mother and sister? Mother and daughter? Are they sisters? I don't know. Okay. Who played Holly in the film Breakfast at Tiffany's? A, B, C, or D? Maybe the leaders know this more than the kid. I don't know. I don't even know the answer. The answer is C, Audrey Hepburn. If you got that one right, you get 1 million points because you're a whole lot smarter than me about that. Next question. How many people were part of the main cast of Friends? 6, 8, 4, or 5? How many people were in the main cast of Friends? Now you're going through the list of Joey and Rachel. Okay. Answer is, hopefully you're answering in the chat. I really hope you are. I'm pre-recording this. I really hope you're answering in the chat. The answer is C. 6. Oh man, I need coffee. The answer is 6, or A. If you answered A, you got it right. All right. What was the most watched cable TV show of 2014? Again, I don't know how many of you were able to watch these shows in 2014, but let's give it a shot. Okay, most watched cable TV show of 2014. Was it Duck Dynasty? Was it Walking Dead, American Horror Story, or Pawn Stars? Answer with your guess, A, B, C, or D. I'll give you 10 more seconds to put down your answer in the chat. Duck Dynasty, Walking Dead, American Horror Story, or Pawn Stars. The most watched cable TV show in 2014 was The Walking Dead. And that is all of the questions for that. So we're going to get started with the message time in just a little bit. Take a quick second for a bathroom break. I'll put a 2-minute countdown right around here. So take a quick bathroom break, get settled in. if you have your Bible, a notepad, pen, paper, whatever, time to get that. Leaders, pass out the bags of things that I'm asking you to pass out. Get all settled, and it will get started in the next 2 minutes. I'll see you back here very, very shortly. Over the next 4 weeks, we're going to be exploring some true stories from the Bible, as well as some not true stories from different movies. And since we'll be watching a bunch of movie clips together, I thought we'd kick things off with my favorite things about movies, and that is movie candies. Now, each of your leaders should have given you some M&Ms, and so find a partner in the room and take a few moments. And if there's an odd number, then there can be a group of 3. That's okay. Now, put some M&Ms in your hands and don't eat them yet. Because here's the thing. With these M&Ms, I want you to share some facts about yourself based on the colors that are in your hand. And I see some of you are probably trying to eat them right now. But if you draw more than one of the same color, you have to give multiple answers to this same category, which will be shortly up here on the screen. So share some facts about yourself based on the colors of the M&Ms in your hand. I'm going to put a timer on the screen. Hopefully I give you enough time. But spend the next little while just, again, sharing something about yourself based on the color of the M&Ms in your hands. Welcome back. So in this next little bit, just raise your hand or nod or say, yep. Did you discover anything new? Yes or no? Did you discover something new about someone that you thought you knew pretty well? Or did you discover something new about yourselves? Look around the room. From our favorite foods to our families to our personalities, we are all unique. There's nobody that is like you, or anywhere or anytime, and that's a good thing. It's a great thing, but it can also be quite a challenge. Let's take a poll here. I know this is gonna be a little different because of video and stuff, but this is a safe place, and we're gonna get a little personal and be honest, but we're gonna take a poll here. So stand for one option and sit for the other. If you're watching without a small group, you're watching at home by yourself, you can chat in the box. I'll be there as well. Here are the questions. Would you rather stand out in a crowd or blend into a crowd? Stand up if you'd rather stand out and be recognized and be known. Stay seated if you'd rather just blend into the crowd. Okay? Number 2, have you ever felt pressured to hide or change who you are? Stand up if you have ever felt that pressure, and sit down if you have never felt that pressure. That can be in family or school or sports. Okay, number 3, have you ever felt like who you are is not good enough? Stand up if you have ever felt that way. Sit down, obviously, if you have never felt that way. If you've never felt like who you are is good enough, stand if you felt that way. Sit if you haven't. Another one is, on most days, do you like who you are? Stand up if you like who you are, if you're satisfied, if everything's hunky-dory. Sit down if you don't like who you are and you wish anything could change. Do you know, last one, do you know exactly who you are, or are you still trying to figure it out? Stand up if you know exactly who you are and what's going on and everything else. Sit down if you're still trying to figure out life and who you are and what you want and all that other kind of stuff. Maybe as we went through this, you just learned some things about yourself or each other that surprised you. Maybe you were looking around the room and you were looking whether or not someone sat or stood, and whoever did that surprised you. We sometimes don't know what someone is thinking or feeling just by looking at somebody. I hope you realize that in this, that there is actually a lot we don't know about each other. Most of us don't walk around announcing our big fears and our insecurities and our questions, but we all have them. And this is especially true when it comes to our identities. For the next few weeks, we're going to be talking about two things. We're going to be talking about who we are, and we're going to be talking about who God is. And we're talking about who we are because many of us, all of us, have questions. We have struggles related to who we are and who we're becoming. And we're going to be talking about who God is because you and I are made in the image of God, our Creator. And to understand who we are, we have to understand who our Creator is. And so we'll be looking at a different true story from the Bible to discover who God is and who we are as well. But before we get to that, let's take a look at one not so true story I think we can all relate to. I think most of us have seen Toy Story, the first one. And if you have, you know that Woody is a favorite toy of his owner, Andy, or at least Woody was Andy's favorite, and then Buzz Lightyear showed up.
I was on top of the world, living high, right in my pocket.
Whoa!
I was living the life, things were just the way they should be. Went from out of the sky like a bomb, comes some little punk in a rocket. Now all of a sudden, some strange things are happening to me.
Buzz Lightyear to the rescue!
Strange things are happening to me. Strange things. Strange things are happening to me. No doubt about it. I have friends, I lost some friends. Now all my friends are gone, and I'm doing the best I can to carry on. I had power, I was respected, but not anymore. And I've lost the love of the one whom I adore. Let me tell you about a strange things that happening to me. Strange
Before Buzz, Woody knew exactly who he was. He was Andy's favorite toy. He was special. He was important. He was a leader. But when Woody began to doubt himself when Andy's attention moved to Buzz, a guy with skills, a guy with qualities, and experience that Woody never had. And how did Woody react? He was insecure. He was afraid. He was jealous. And as time went on, these feelings did not go away. They kept growing until Woody found himself filled with so much hatred for Buzz that he was plotting on how to get rid of him forever. Now, maybe this story sounds a little far-fetched, but really it's not. I mean, the jealousy turning into hatred thing is real, but talking toys is probably, definitely, maybe fictional. Let's take a few minutes and talk around our group or in the chat room, but let's answer a few questions. I'm going to put a timer on the screen, and I'll be back in a few minutes, but so here are the questions.
Hello SCF Youth, and welcome to Youth Online. Thanks for coming out and watching tonight. Tonight I'm going to be talking a little bit about jealousy, and more specifically about a time in my life where I have experienced jealousy. When I was first asked to talk about this, I didn't exactly know where I was going to go with it. But after some thinking, I don't know why it didn't pop out to me sooner, but people who are taller than me and people who can grow beards are two kinds of people that I'm jealous of. And that's a lot of people. And I think that's easy for us to do. We can look at other people, someone who's taller, and be like, yeah, you know what? I wish I could be more like that person because of their height, or because they're better at sports, or because whatever. It's easy for us to look at ourselves more negatively. Sometimes we wish we could be smart like someone else, or we wish we could grow facial hair, whatever the case may be. It's easy for us to dwell on that kind of stuff and look down upon ourselves for some reason. Jealousy can kind of brew a hatred in us for the other person if we let it get too far too. It's not a good emotion. It's not something that we should be looking for. It's not something that it's something that we need to be looking out for, though. And it's very easy to become jealous of somebody, especially when it comes to someone's physical features. God didn't make us as people. God made us unique. He didn't make us to be longing for what that person has. He wants us to be grateful and happy with what we do have. He wants us to use our abilities and gifts and physical attributes to glorify Him. It's not about us. He's given us an awesome body, no matter what it is. But I feel like we can lose sight of that a lot. God's given me a small body, which means I can fit into places that a lot of people can't. And it is easy for me to look at somebody else who's tall and be like, man, I long for that. But I just need to be grateful for what God's given me here, to be content with what He's given me. And then I can really do His work here. I can do His kingdom work instead of focusing on me. Yeah, so don't base your worth off of what you see in other people. God's given you an amazing gift, an amazing purpose in life. It's up to us to listen to His voice and hear what it is. Work with what you've been given, and you'll see that God will bless you in your way.
The book of Genesis is filled with stories of the very beginning of humanity, and it includes the story of two brothers named Cain and Abel. Adam slept with Eve, his wife. She conceived and had Cain. She said, "I've gotten a man with God's help." Then she had another baby, Abel. Abel was a herdsman and Cain a farmer. Time passed. Cain brought an offering to God from the produce of his farm. Abel also brought an offering, but from the firstborn animals of his herd, choice cuts of meat. God liked Abel and his offering, but Cain and his offering didn't get His approval. Cain lost his temper and went into a sulk. God spoke to Cain, "Why this tantrum? Why the sulking? If you do well, won't you be accepted? If you don't do well, sin is lying in wait for you, ready to pounce. It's out to get you. You've got to master it." Cain had words with his brother. They were out in the field. Cain came at Abel, his brother, and killed him. Now, we don't know why God wasn't happy with Cain's offering, but if I had to guess, maybe it's because Cain just had an attitude problem. And if he didn't have one before he made his offering, he sure did afterward. Cain was so angry with God, he was so jealous and so afraid of not being seen as important or worthy of love that he killed his own brother. And Cain isn't the only person in Scripture who attacked their brother out of jealousy. Later on in Genesis, we meet a 17-year-old named Joseph and his 11 brothers and their dad, Jacob. And we all know that parents aren't supposed to have favorite kids, but Jacob never got that message. And so Joseph was Jacob's favorite, and he didn't even try to hide it. Joseph was the center of his father's attention and affection, and he even got a fancy new coat, which was a really big deal back then. And so the brothers all knew Joseph was their dad's favorite, and they weren't happy about it, especially when Joseph started having dreams that he would someday rule over his brothers, and then he would just brag about it. So in Genesis chapter 37, verses 5 to 11, Joseph had a dream. When he told it to his brothers, they hated him even more. He said, "Listen to this dream I had. We were all out in the field gathering bundles of wheat. All of a sudden, my bundle stood straight up, and your bundles circled around it and bowed down to mine." His brother said, "So you're going to rule us? You're going to boss us around?" And they hated him more than ever because of his dreams and the way he talked. He had another dream and told this one also to his brothers. "I dreamed another dream. The sun and the moon and the 11 stars bowed down to me." When he told it to his father and brothers, his father reprimanded him. "What's with all this dreaming? Am I and your mother and your brothers all supposed to bow down to you?" Now his brothers were really jealous, but his father brooded over the whole business. Continue on in verses 18 to 36. They spotted him off in the distance. By the time he got to them, they had cooked up a plot to kill him. The brothers were saying, "Here comes that dreamer. Let's kill him and throw him into one of these old wells. We can say that a vicious animal ate him up. We'll see what his dreams amount to." Reuben heard the brothers talking and intervened to save him. "We're not going to kill him. No murder. Go ahead and throw him in this well out here in the wild, but don't hurt him." Reuben planned to go back later and get him out and take him back to his father. When Joseph reached his brothers, they ripped off the fancy coat he was wearing, grabbed him, and threw him in a well. The well was dry. There wasn't any water in it. When they sat down to eat their supper, looking up, they saw a caravan of Ishmaelites on their way from Gilead, their camels loaded with spices and ointments and perfumes to sell in Egypt. Judah said, "Brothers, what are we going to get out of killing our brother and concealing the evidence? Let's sell him to the Ishmaelites, but let's not kill him. He is, after all, our brother, our own flesh and blood." So his brothers agreed. By that time, the Midianite traders were passing by. His brothers pulled Joseph out of the well and sold him for 20 pieces of silver to the Ishmaelites, who took Joseph with them down to Egypt. Later on, Reuben came back and went to the well. No Joseph. He ripped his clothes in despair. Beside himself, he went to his brothers. "The boy is gone. What am I going to do?" They took Joseph's coat, butchered a goat, and dipped the coat in blood. They took the fancy coat back to their brother and said, "We found this. Look it over. Do you think this is your son's coat?" He recognized it at once. "My son's coat. A wild animal has eaten him." Joseph torn from limb to limb. Jacob, the father, then tore his clothes in grief. Dressed in rough burlap, he mourned his son for a long, long time. His sons and daughters tried to comfort him, but he refused their comfort. "I'll go to the grave mourning my son." Oh, how his father wept for him. Just like Woody and Cain, Joseph's brothers allowed their fears and their insecurities to turn into jealousy, which then turned into anger and hatred. And like Woody and Cain, his brothers came up with a plan to get rid of the person who made them feel insecure and not important. You see, the only reason that Joseph didn't end up like Abel or dead is because one of Joseph's brothers wanted to spare his life. So instead, Joseph was sold into slavery, and the remaining brothers told their father that he had died. Listen, we might think that jealousy is harmless. That is just something that we experience from time to time. But these stories show us how destructive jealousy can be. And so let's take a few minutes and talk about this. Take some time in your small group, and there'll be 2 sets of questions on the screen, one for junior highs and one for older senior highs, and there'll be a timer, and I'll be back here shortly. If there's not enough time, you have plenty of time after this video to talk more about this, and you can revisit these questions later on. But we're gonna get moving, and then you can do questions as a small group later on if you want. So we've learned about Cain, we've learned about Abel and Joseph's brothers, and even some of the first Jesus followers wrestled with jealousy too. They didn't attack or throw anyone into a well, but they were getting pretty worked up, fighting and comparing themselves to each other. 1 Corinthians 12, verses 4 to 12. God's various gifts are handed out everywhere, but they all originate in God's Spirit. God's various ministries are carried out everywhere, but they all originate in God's Spirit. God's various expressions of power are in action everywhere, but God himself is behind it all. Each person is given something to do that shows who God is. Everyone gets in on it. Everyone benefits. All kinds of things are handed out by the Spirit and to all kinds of people. The variety is wonderful. Wise counsel, clear understanding, simple trust, healing the sick, miraculous powers, proclamation, distinguishing between spirits, tongues, and interpretation of tongues. All of these gifts have a common origin, but are handed out one by one by the one Spirit of God. He decides who gets what and when. You can easily enough see how this kind of thing works by looking no further than your own body. Your body has many parts, limbs and organs and cells, and no matter how many parts you can name, you're still one body. It's exactly the same with Christ. By means of his one Spirit, we all said goodbye to our partial and piecemeal lives. We each used to independently call our own shots, but then we entered into a large and integrated life in which he has the final say in everything. Each of us is now a part of his resurrection body, refreshed and sustained at one fountain, his Spirit, where we can all come to drink. The old labels that we once used to identify ourselves, labels like Jew or Greek or slave or free, are no longer useful. We need something larger, something more comprehensive. There is so much that we can discover from this passage about who God is and who we are. In this passage, we read that God is generous in verse 4. In verse 5 and 6, God is trustworthy. God is caring. Verse 7. Verse 11, God is just and fair. Basically, bottom line, God is good. And I think it's important to read these. It's important to hear these and be reminded. You can always expect God to be these things. Don't expect people to be these things. People will let you down, but you can trust God to be these things. So the question is this: who are you? Well, verse 4 to 6, God is with you. You have a purpose, and part of your purpose is to let God use you for the good of others. We read that in verse 7. In verse 8 to 10, your gifts, your talents, your dreams, your creativity is all unique to you. Listen to this carefully, because even I had to fully believe and accept this. Listen, God didn't make mistakes when you were created. That's it. We read that in verse 11. And your identity, who you are, is not just about you. It's found in the community of others in Jesus. Jealousy, Paul shows us, isn't just destructive. It doesn't make sense. You have no reason to be jealous of anybody else, because you were created by God, who is good, who is generous and caring and trustworthy. And you are known and you are carefully designed by your Creator, who is always with you. And nobody else has your unique purpose that only you can do. If you've ever struggled with jealousy, with feeling like you don't measure up, if you've ever wished that you were somebody else, if you've ever felt insecure, I want you to remember this: we can have confidence in who we are because of who our Creator is. Because of who God is, we can trust how God made us. Now, you should have a handout, and I want to give you the opportunity to think a little differently. It's easy to focus on what we don't have or what we don't like about ourselves. And today, I want you to write some ideas about who God is and what God would say about who you are and what your purpose is. Let me give you a few tips about this. Number one, be real. No one will see this but you, unless you want to share it. So don't try and fool or impress anybody with what you write down. Secondly, look for the good. You were made by a loving Creator, and there's so much to love about yourself. Number 3, dream big. There is no limit to what God can do through you.
Who am I that the highest King would welcome me? I was lost, but He brought me in. Oh, His love for me. Oh, His love for me. Christ, He has ransomed me. His grace runs deep. While I was a slave to sin, Jesus died for me. Yes, He died for me. Who the Son sets free, always free indeed. I'm a child of God. Yes, I am. In my Father's house, there's a place for me. I'm a child of God. Yes, I am. I am chosen, not forsaken. I am who you say I am. You are for me, not against me. I am who you say I am. I am chosen, not forsaken. I am who you say I am. You are for me, not against me. I am who you say I am. I am who you say I am. Who the Son sets free, always free indeed. I'm a child of God. Yes, I am. In my Father's house, there's a place for me. I'm a child of God. Yes, I am. In my Father's house, there's a place for me. I'm a child of God. Yes, I am. I am chosen, not forsaken. I am who you say I am. You are for me, not against me. I am who you say I am. I am chosen, not forsaken. I am who you say I am. You are for me, not against me. I am who you say I am. I am chosen, not forsaken. I am who you say I am. You are for me, not against me. I am who you say I am. Oh, I am who you say I am. Yes, I am who you say I am. Who the Son sets free, always free indeed. I'm a child of God. Yes, I am. In my Father's house, there's a place for me. I'm a child of God. Yes, I am.
It can be hard to see ourselves clearly, to see the positives, and that might be hard because we're still figuring out who we are. But it's also a part of God's design. One of the reasons we were created to be in community with others is because we often need others to help us see ourselves clearly. Before you leave where you are tonight, I'm going to ask you to write on a Post-it note an encouraging thing for somebody else, and make sure you give it to them. Also, here's an idea. Why don't you send a friend or a follower of yours online on social media an encouraging note as well? And if you receive any, show them off. Take pictures and post them. It's always good to share the encouraging news that we get from others. When you know who God is, you can be more confident in who God created you to be. And when you're more confident in who God has created you to be, it's easier to help others be confident in who God has created them to be. Do you see how it works? Insecurity makes us fearful, it makes us angry, it makes us jealous, but confidence in God allows us to be courageous and compassionate and generous toward others. As Jesus followers, that's who we're called to be. So over the next few weeks, we're going to be spending more time talking about who God is and who we are. And hopefully, you'll begin to see more ways of how you've been uniquely designed. As you discover more about who God is, you will hopefully come to love your Creator even more than you do right now. And so this week, I'm lovingly challenging you to remember and to pray and to trust this truth. Because of who God is, we can trust how God has made us. Well, everybody, thank you so much for joining us tonight. Again, whether you're in small groups or watching alone in your house or wherever you are, thank you so much for tuning in. I want to give you an opportunity, and if you're in small groups, I want to give you an opportunity to continue on in conversation and talk more about what we just learned and listened to. Your leaders have small group questions and they are ready to just be available to talk. If you're watching alone or you're watching at your house and you're not in a small group, I am literally here in the chat room ready to talk with you and chat with you. And so feel free to reach out to me if you'd like to. But that's it for now. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll be back here online next week to continue on in a series called True Story.